We're 24th, 2022 to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk call a roll, please?
Washburn?
Here.
Hewitt?
Here.
Doxey?
Here.
Bhatia?
Here.
Clausen?
Here.
Anastasio?
Here.
DeGroot?
He's here. So we're going to move on to public comment. Members of the public are welcome to provide comments on any matter. Please listen for the president to recognize you. State your name and address for the public record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Can I hear from Bob Evangelisti? Yes, please, at the podium.
Thank you.
Make sure the green dot is lit up. Stephanie, if you would.
Green, at the lower right-hand corner? Okay, good. So I'm commenting on agenda item F2A. I hope that's the right number, so. My name is Robert Evangelisti. I reside at 5342 Vicksburg Drive. Been there since June 2005. And it's in the Campbellwood subdivision, which is located just to the east of the property in question in F2A. So when we purchased our home, we were told that the land was supposed to be zoned for perhaps a small office building. And now we learned that it's zoned as residential. And the current landlord is requesting a change in zoning to B2, which is community business. And that change will allow operation of a number of businesses, some which, in my opinion, could be detrimental to the surrounding residences.
Sir?
Yes.
I just want to, you can have your time right now, but later on, when we get to that agenda item, we have the public hearing for that.
Oh.
And for legal purposes, those comments for that public hearing will be entered into the record.
That'd be fine. I did give a
So
hard
do you-
copy.
And if you want, you can do it now and again then, but if you don't want to say all your stuff twice, then you should probably do it then.
Oh,
Okay,
so,
that's fine.
what the hell, you know? Does that make it count twice, though? And I did ask about that, and I was told I could do it now.
You can,
No,
you can,
okay.
yes.
All right. Is it exponential or? So anyway, as I read the ordinance for B2, one thing it allows like liquor stores, nightclubs, pawn shops, tattoo parlors to operate, which I don't think are appropriate for the neighborhood. So also, though, that a business, as opposed to residences, would require more land to be developed compared to the residences. So, and that could adversely impact any wetlands, flora, and fauna that exist in the area. So, and as you know, the oak savanna that's in that area has already been stressed by the widening of KR. In fact, we lost about I think a 33-inch diameter tree for the bike path. So, and reading the posting in the notice is that, 3 acres would be more than sufficient for 3 lots, and we saw plans for 3 lots there. And also, access to a business in the corner might make it difficult off of KR. So, last couple of comments is the history of the developer's attempt to rezone areas and or develop other properties should, in my opinion, maybe raise concern to the village board. And there were funds that the neighborhood had for environmental degradation that were taken by the former developer, and those have not been returned yet. So I would urge you, the commission, to deny any change in zoning from residence to B2, and thanks for your time. Did I do it in 3 minutes?
That's good.
Good, thanks, Dave. I'll sit down then.
Bob Shimshak, did you want to say it twice, or do you want to hold your thoughts till later? Okay. Barbara Vass, same thing? Okay, wait till later. Kelly Gallagher.
Good evening, Kelly Gallagher, 4622 Nola Drive. Quote, "We feel we have done a very good job of protecting the public. This is what residents were told by Trustee Washburn in the last village board meeting regarding the dog mauling in my neighborhood. Let's review. 1, Under state law, MPPD always had the authority to impound the dogs that attacked my neighbors on August 31st. On any of the multiple times they had been previously called about these dogs running loose and menacing neighbors. Had village police known and acted upon this authority, Ann Kulas and Jennifer Willems might never have been mauled at all. 2, according to police body cam footage, MPPD did not even know who to send the report of the attack to. They did not know because of an outdated and incoherent village animal ordinance which had not been amended for 20 years. 3, according to the police body cam footage of an interview with Ann Kulas the day following the attack, she clearly told Officer Studebaker that she was attacked by 2 dogs, but only 1 dog, Coco, was included in the police report. 4, a vicious dog letter, oh, did I lose it? Okay. A vicious dog letter was sent to the owner the day after 50 of my neighbors appeared at the September 12th Village Board meeting, with 19 of them speaking for nearly an hour during public comments. 5, although village officials were told repeatedly that there were 2 dogs involved in the attack, their concerns were ignored until the hearing just last week when Ann Kulas testified again clearly that she was attacked by 2 dogs, Coco and Remy. It was Judge Fegley who asked why Remy had not been included in this case. And so 61 days after the attack, we finally got a vicious dog letter for Remy. 60 of my neighbors signed a petition demanding an amended animal ordinance which would hopefully avoid this situation for others and the fear and confusion we have lived with for almost 2 years. 2 weeks ago, an amendment ordinance was first offered. Do you know who has done a good job of protecting the public? My neighbors. There would be no vicious dog letters or hearings or new ordinances if it wasn't for their persistence. When it was pointed out the amendments to the animal ordinance fell short of what we asked for, we were told that the village had gone over and above after spending 30 whole minutes talking about it in the previous committee of the whole meeting. Tonight we have a new amendment to the animal ordinance, one that you all thought was just fine 2 weeks ago. I appreciate that Chris Smith saw that there was in fact room for improvement. Since the village board packet wasn't published today, none of us have been able to review it until just a few hours ago. And you know what? That's not okay. The language looks more direct to me. However, I wish to point out again, the city of Racine and the village of Sturtevant require the removal of vicious animals within 5 days and disallow any animal determined to be vicious in another jurisdiction to live in their municipality. According to even our new ordinance, we do. There is a potential for dogs not allowed to reside in neighboring communities to live in Mount Pleasant instead. In this regard, I believe the job is not done yet. Thank you.
Okay, was there anybody else wishing to speak publicly? You want to bring that up here? Ma'am?
Just bring it up here.
Okay, these are both for the zoning ordinance, so we'll take those up at their proper time. Okay, with that being said, there is going to be more public comment during the zoning ordinances business, and so we'll close public comment for right now, and we will move on to consent agenda.
Mr. President, I make a motion to adopt the items on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. So under new business, finance, clerk treasurer, we've got discussion, possible motion to enter into a settlement agreement with Walgreens pertaining Racine County case number 2020 CV 1226 and 2020 CV 939er.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve a settlement agreement with Walgreens Company pertaining to Racine County case numbers 2020 CV 1226 and 2022 CV 939 as presented.
Second.
So I hear a motion and a second. Mr. Smith?
These pertain to tax assessment challenges filed by Walgreens twice in the last 3 years, but there was another one coming this year. It just hasn't been filed in court yet. So these have been in litigation for some time. We think it's a favorable settlement for the village because the expert reports for Walgreens argued that both stores, one on Durand, one on Spring Street, should be valued at $2 million, and the settlement for each store for each of the 3 years, 20, 21, and 22, the numbers for each store for each year is above $3 million. And so this case was scheduled for trial next month. We think it's a fair settlement and recommend the approval.
Could you detail what the amounts are?
I believe for 2020, I don't have my committee of the whole stuff with me. Denise is helping me. So for 2020, the Spring Street is 3.025 million. For Durand, it's 3.075. For 2021, Spring Street's 3.04. Durand is 3.09. For 2022, Spring Street is 3.05 million, Durand is 3.1 million. So not only will this settle cases for those two pending court challenges, but it also takes care of 2022. So we'll have a break from Walgreens litigation until probably 2024.
Right, and so, that's the assessed amounts, but what does it mean in terms of, once you back out Racine Unified and all the other taxing jurisdictions, for the Village of Mount Pleasant, that's a refund to Walgreens per year of?
So for the Village of Mount Pleasant, basically the math is $100,000 of assessed value is about $800 in tax revenue. And so the total amount that we're giving up here is about $2,400 a year for those 3 years.
Right. Anybody else?
Mr. President, just also something that I've learned in my tenure here, we often get these we've had them from Walmart, from Menards, Walgreens, a lot of the big boxes. They constantly challenge their tax bills. So we are dealing with this all the time. There's a state statute process, appraisals on both sides and so forth. And I think that our litigators and our insurance company did a great job of holding the line, certainly based on the fact that Walgreens thought it was worth $2 million, and we held our line and we got it. So again, something that we see more than we would like to, but I think they did a great job for us.
Agreed. So on that matter, roll call, please.
Washburn,
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Doxey,
Aye.
Batia,
Aye.
Clausen,
Aye.
Anastasio,
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye. Motion carries. So we move to community development, item A, and this has a public hearing associated with it. So I'll open the public hearing for item A for a zoning map amendment for property on Old Green Bay Road. And for those wishing to speak, please address the board. I don't want any crosstalk between members of the in the chambers. And but first, I'm going to recognize Mr. Schultz, and he'll give us the overview on what the public hearing is about. So, Mr. Schultz.
Mr. President, members of the board, the applicant requested to amend the zoning map for 6915 Washington Avenue from B2 Community Business to B3 General Business. The applicant wishes to develop a Taco John's quick serve restaurant. The applicant requested the B3 zoning to allow for multiple drive-through lanes. because the ordinance prohibits multiple drive-through lanes in the B2 district. The applicant did not apply for site plan review with those applications. Oh, sorry, Old Green Bay Road. I got through like an entire paragraph.
Want to take another stab at that?
Yeah, I was just jumping ahead. The applicant applied to amend the zoning map for the parcel along Old Green Bay Road from RE, which is estate residential, to B2, which is community business. The applicant believes the parcel's location at the intersection of two county trunk highways and the shallowness of the property make it unsuited for estate residential development and more suited for neighborhood-style commercial development. The village staff agree with the applicant. The application is in coordination with the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive Plan Amendment CPA 0122. Application meets the B2 lot size standards. The lands contained within the application do not lie within any tax incremental district. The applicant has not requested any tax incremental financing for the project. The village staff and the Plan Commission don't recommend any conditions for approval, and the village staff and the Plan Commission recommend the village board move to approve the ordinance.
The applicant is here.
The applicant is here if you have any questions.
Mr. Norker, did you want to come up and just give us a little overview of what you might plan on using this rezoning for?
My name's Al Nordker, live in Burlington, Wisconsin. This property was originally zoned agricultural urban holding, and when the village adopted the new zoning ordinance, it was put into the RE zone. We've always thought that it was better suited for commercial because of its bordering two county trunk highways. So we're asking for a zoning that would, in my mind, accommodate a doctor's office, dentist's office, or the like. B2 zoning is the appropriate zoning for that purpose, and those are the purposes that I think are appropriate for this property. The fact that it is bordered on two sides is a triangular shaped property. The fact that it's bordered on two sides by a county trunk highway and the third side is the high power lines make it less desirable for residential and more desirable for commercial. And the property is currently for sale, and we will not be doing the development on it.
Any questions from the board?
Can I ask what kind of like commercial businesses you have in mind?
I'm thinking just doctor's office, dentist's office, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Real estate, insurance.
Okay.
I'm not thinking of some of the other uses aren't really what I think of as a neighborhood business anyway.
So it not be any kind of business which is open like late evenings or with the lights on or the noise or something like that? It's
No,
just like,
I'm not suggesting that at all. It's just that I understand B2 is the appropriate zoning for this type of a doctor's office, dentist's office,
Thank
real
you.
estate office.
thank you.
Just a point of clarification, this is an introduction to the project. We're going to hold the public hearing. If we do, I could see myself having a question
Okay.
as we're deliberating. Would that, or
Well, this was just some
prior?
initial questions because I had them up here.
Okay.
And
I
we
don't
can-
have any questions
And I can
for him.
recognize them again when that business gets in front of us. But let's move on to the public speaking part of that. So if I could recognize Barbara Vass. Name and address for the record, ma'am.
Yes, Barbara Voss, 4007 First Street, Kenosha. We have lived on the summer side of KR, a quarter mile east of the land in question, for more than 30 years. And I would just like to point out that although a doctor's office sounds very nice, if the land is for sale, I believe the use of that land, how it's developed, would be determined by the people who buy it, not by this gentleman. Okay, 20-some years ago, you may not know, Mount Pleasant denied a similar petition to change the zoning of this corner to commercial. The major factor in the denial was the incompatibility of public commercial usage with the major electricity transmission lines that run the whole length of the back of the property. The only change since that denial is that the corner is smaller now due to the road intersection widening, making public commercial usage even more incompatible. The Plan Commission should again deny this petition for the safety of the community, or at minimum, table it for further study. Thank you.
Can I hear from Jerry Randant?
Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Jerry Radant, and I live at 145 43rd Avenue, which is about 400 feet south of this property. I've lived there for approximately 62 years. And I don't know if this gentleman is aware, are you selling the property, or are you aware that half of that property is a swamp? You're aware of that, the other half. Are you aware that on the corner of the property now is a lift station for the sewage from the town of Sturtevant? Okay, well, it is. They just put it in there last year, and it takes up a great amount of property. So out of that 3 acres that you're thinking about selling or buying, only maybe 40% of it is buildable because of the swamp, because of the high line. That whole area has been a swamp since I've been there in that residence. Also, say it's going to be a doctor's office or a dentist's office is lovely. And I want some guarantees that that's what's going to go there in the end, because down the road in 6 months when this property is rezoned or whatever, resold, blah, 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 they could have a taco stand there. Who knows? So thank you for your time, and I'm deadly against this project or this sale of this property, converting it to residential. That's been commercial. That's been residential property for a long time, and it can't be changed.
Thank you. Can I hear from Gina Radant?
Hello, my name is Gina Radant. I live at 145 43rd Avenue, Kenosha. So again, that's just across KR to the south in Summers. I too am against rezoning this piece of property. We faced enough with what has happened to KR. It has been a great neighborhood. I've grown up there. There is my childhood, there was a massive pond/swamp on that corner. When it froze over in the winter, we would ice skate on it. There is wetlands throughout that whole section there in Mount Pleasant where Campbell's Woods have gone in. The high line power lines are also an issue. And the other thing I'd just like to say is I'm going to still be in that neighborhood for a long, long time. Many of you might be gone in 20 to 30 to 40 years. And if we take it and turn it into something else for business, I'm going to face the ramifications of that. And so I strongly encourage you to keep this residential. The neighborhood has gone through enough again with KR, and it would be a mistake to turn this into a business corner. Thank you.
Can I hear from Bob Shimshak?
Evening. Name is Bob Shimshak. I live at 5208 Vicksburg Drive in Mount Pleasant, which is on the north side of KR and the east side of Old Green Bay. I also oppose the request for rezoning on this property. It's a residential property, generally. Across KR is all residential. Our neighborhood, Campbell's Wood, is all residential. Up and down KR is residential. Across Old 31 is residential. The only piece that is not residential is Kitty Corner, which would be the Miller property, which is agricultural. The request for rezoning because of the fact that you can't fit residential lots on there, which is zoned for today, is, I don't believe is true. If you look at an overlay on that property, the amount of property there could fit 2, 3, maybe 4 residential lots. There's significant wetlands in there that need to be addressed. And it's not compatible with the surrounding area of residents. Other than, I mean, I think it's the wrong use in the wrong place. The Highway 31 developments that are happening are the right places for these type of developments, not in a residential neighborhood where we are, and it should be denied for that, for a number of reasons. Thank you.
Okay, can we hear again from Robert Evangelowski? You can give us a different version if you'd like, or you can say the same thing.
Speaking French to our Canadian friends now, so I'm sorry about this. I thought I was doing the right thing, so. Start again then. Again, in case you forgot, I'm Bob Evangelisti, and I still reside at 4352 Vicksburg Drive, which I think is still in Mount Pleasant. And I still live there since 2005, which is still in the Campbellwood subdivision, so. And you know where the property is located, so. We were told by the developer and the sale agent that that would be a small office building, like a medical complex. And we were surprised when this zone is residential, in case you forgot what I said 10 minutes ago. And the owner's requesting a change to zoning B2, community business, and in my opinion, that might be detrimental to some of the surrounding residences. And a B2 will allow liquor stores, nightclubs, pawn shops, tattoo parties, etc. And in my opinion, those are not appropriate for the neighborhood. A B1, I didn't say this before, so in case you're following at home, a B1 will allow for business offices and professional offices, but it's not, B1 is not as broad as B2, but I think you probably know that though. And I have concerns about the land being developed there, and the limited access, and that will impact wetlands, flora, and fauna in the area. And I still have concern about the Oak Savanna being stressed by the K2 widening. And in my opinion, the nearly 3 acres should be okay for 3 lots with homes of about 1 acre, and we saw plans for that, so. And access to business on the corner would be difficult and impossible right from KR, so. And again, the history of the developer's attempts to rezone other properties and to develop other properties, in my opinion, should raise concerns with the village board. And again, the former developer, who's now deceased, did take the environmental fund for our neighborhood, which has not been returned yet, so. And again, I would urge the commission to deny the change in zoning from residence to B2, so. And thanks again for your time twice today, so. And I'll sit down then, so. Nice to see you all again.
Thank you, Bob. AJ Budinsky?
Good evening. My name's Anthony Budzinski. I live at 5331 Vicksburg Drive. And I'll keep this short because I think everything's already been said. But when I bought this property 20 years ago and built my house, these lots were residential, and I bought that house and bought that lot with that in mind, you know. So it seems to me that if you change this zoning, you know, it'll probably enrich Mr. Nordiker, but enrich him in taking, you know, the value of our property away from us. So I don't see that as being a good trade-off for us. Again, I bought my property knowing what was going to be around me. I don't think I want to look out my front door and see a gas station or an industrial building or a paint shop or whatever might be there. And then, you know, there's people across the street from me who, you know, their backyard will be whatever's going to be there. You know, they put, you know, their life savings in these houses. They knew what was going to be there, and now to have it changed just because he wants to make a little more money on his property doesn't seem right to me at all. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Christine Orbs? I'm sorry if I butcher your name, Froggy Throat.
I get it all the time, no worries. I'm Christine Oberst. My address is 6557 Hillwood Court. My property backs up to KR in the Campbell Woods neighborhood. And I would just like to say that while I don't have the longevity that some of the residents have talked about today, I bought the property 3 years ago, but I did do a lot of homework at the time because the widening of KR would definitely impact my property. And so I'm a little concerned about, well, I understand, you know, I'm, you know, all in the name of progress. I'm a little concerned that the property is for sale and there's no plan for the business that would go in there. And so I'd highly recommend that we do not approve the rezoning. Thank you.
Dr. Lindsay Knoll.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Nell. I live at 5338 Vicksburg Drive. My property is adjacent to that property. I'm one of the people that Dr. Budzinski just referenced that is in my backyard. I actually looked at purchasing the property at one time, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and I had some people come out and take a look at it. There is significant wetlands on the property. I can assure you that part of my property gets very wet at certain times of the year, so I'm concerned with runoff. When I looked at purchasing that property, I also was surprised at how problematic that area could be to develop. I was told at the time it was zoned residential, and I object to changing that at this time. So thank you.
Cindy Bundy?
Hi, my name's Cindy Bundy. Our property is at 5332 Vicksburg Drive and the lot next door. I just want to go on the record as opposing the rezoning to business. Our property does back up to that. I can see him clear cutting the whole lot, putting in some business where now we've got to look at that. Sit out in your backyard, look at the back of a business. It doesn't fit, and I oppose it.
Anybody else wish to speak that hadn't signed up? Not hearing from anybody else, we'll close that part of the public hearing. And then we'll move on to the B section, which is discussion possible action on ordinance 34-2022, zoning map amendment, CMA 06-2222 for Old Green Bay Road, tax parcel number 151-0322-35050-200.
Mr. President, I make a motion to adopt make a motion to approve the ordinance 34-2022, a zoning map amendment for Old Green Bay Road, zoning map amendment ZMA 06-22.
Second.
So I hear a motion and a second. Mr. Schultz, if you'd weigh in on this a little bit further. You've heard a number of concerns raised by the residents, and one of which is the slaughterhouse argument. We hear that frequently. If you put the zoning in, what's the worst possible thing that can happen? And we have procedures to ensure that the worst possible thing doesn't happen. But if you would clarify some of the points that we've heard.
Yeah, so there's a pretty significant power line easement. So anything that would be developed on the property would be pretty close to the corner, at least 100 feet setback from the east property
Get
line.
your mic a little bit closer.
From the east property line. Sorry about that. There's also wetlands on the property as well that any future developer could only fill with permission from the DNR. They would have to go through that mitigation process. I'm hesitant to believe, particularly after the widening of KR, that you could put 3 or 4 lots on the property because I don't think the county would grant driveway permits that close to the new intersection. So that's one of the main reasons why the village staff thought the commercial was appropriate, because you're likely then only going to have one driveway. The only other way to develop multiple lots on the property would be to bring in a public road, and then the driveways would come off that public road. But that would eat up another 66 feet plus the cul-de-sac, which has a 75-foot radius. So all those things going into account, plus the adjacency to a now busier and upgraded corner, made us believe that residential development on the corner was unlikely. The only residential development that I would anticipate seeing would not be single family on that corner. It would likely be multifamily. So that's just my read of the market, my professional opinion. I think the question in front of the village board is, what do you believe the future land use of this should be? Do you believe it should be business or commercial, or do you believe it should be residential, knowing that the consequence to your decision for residential is likely that it is multifamily? I mean, we have a 2,500 square foot minimum home size in the RE district as the zoning stands now. I can't see anyone dropping 400 grand plus into a new home on that busy of a corner. So, that was the staff's logic in thinking that B2 was appropriate zoning. The only thing I'll note about the B1 zoning is it limits the business size to 1,500 square feet or less. So I think of the use categories, not in terms of like this district allows certain things, the other one allows certain things. We try to think of them as like, where are those businesses commonly taking place? The B1 zoning is really intended to be kind of your urban, dense zoning, like think Racine Street, Meade Street, like corner bodega, pizza place, that kind of thing on a dense urban corner. The B2 zoning is meant to be more, broadens that out a little bit. Your local flower shops, your other things, yes, it does involve certain uses that people might not like to live next to, such as a gas station, but this does limit the number of pumps to 4 or less via conditional use. And the updated zoning ordinances also include strict residential screening when a commercial business is adjacent to a residential property. So that's how we try to address those adjacency concerns. But ultimately, it's the staff's opinion, and it was, I think, of the Plan Commission, that residential development, particularly of a single-family type on that corner, is unlikely.
Questions for Sam or general thoughts?
Sam, is there there is a zoning category that would limit it to something like a physician's office?
No.
Sam, as I was listening to the comments, I was also thinking between B1 and B2. So Thank you for clarifying, what B1, but you did say under B2, did you say it could be even gas station?
It could, but we limit the number of pumps. So generally, we have not dealt with a new gas station that wants to come in with less than like 16 pumps. I mean, most of the new ones are like the big quick trips that want to come in. It's not really worth it for someone to come in and put in the old school, like 1 or 2 kind of urban gas station. So I think, honestly, the market forces of this corner are going to limit it more than the actual like allowable uses in the zoning. I, again, want to emphasize that it doesn't have great access. I think you're probably going to get 1 driveway access from the county. That's probably going to be on the far north end of Old Green Bay Road, would be my best guess for an access point. And I don't think they're going to grant multiple ones. So a high traffic user like a drive-through or a gas station isn't going to want to build on that corner because they're going to want a better access than that anyways. So.
And when you talk about the access, again, you make good points about the driveway access that maybe the county would not grant it. Won't the same issue be applied to, say, commercial? Because commercial also have to have a access, driveway access, and parking and all those things. So won't that be also likely to be not approved or restricted by the county?
I think the county, my best guess is they would grant 1 commercial driveway, but not more than 1 commercial driveway.
Thank you.
Sam, I have a 2-part question actually on this.
Go for
so
it.
First part is the owner is trying to rezone this in order to sell the property. Then that's affirmative. That's what he's doing.
Sorry. Yep.
So the second part to that is if he sells it, and someone comes in to develop that property, we go through a process to ensure that that is going to be amiable to where the residents will be able to come in and then say, hey, we don't want that business here. So there'll be other times where residents can say, no, we don't want a gas station there, or we want a doctor's office or such, right?
They could, if it's allowable use by right, the village couldn't straight up deny the use, but the Plan Commission does have the power to make related site plan changes. I think most of our existing ordinances address a lot of those concerns in terms of screening requirements, parking lot standards, lighting standards. We have very strict lighting standards comparative to most of our neighboring communities. So I think the existing village standards would address a lot of the people's concerns. So the answer is yes and no to your second part. We could not deny a use allowed by right, but we could certainly address site plan concerns for that proposed development. And yes, it would go through a full Plan Commission review process. So if someone wanted to come in and say, I want to put a doctor's office there with 8 parking spots, they'll submit a site plan to us. The staff will review it and give it a preliminary review. The Plan Commission will review it publicly and give it a secondary review. And then our engineering department will also give it a review to make sure they meet all the public works standards of which you're familiar.
Mr. Hewitt?
It's a troubled piece of property. There's another possibility, and that would be the residents of Campbell Woods getting together and buying the property and keeping it as is.
No one's smiling.
Yeah, we've certainly had those conversations.
Yeah. Mr. President?
Yep.
What I see here, I have a couple of questions for Sam, but what I see in the packet that we received today is a markup of the corner, and I'm not sure if anybody in the public went online to see our packets. They are, there is, of this 3.62 acre parcel, there is only 35,000 square feet that's actually developable. What's excluded from that are the areas that are wetland and the high tower lines and the setbacks that were identified. I think this is really, this is a troubled corner, and I agree with John in that regard. My question for Sam is, because the public has made a couple of statements about when they first bought their homes, that was actually shown as a commercial outlot. do you remember from the Campbell's Woods plat, did you ever look at that? Is that what it was zoned at that time, or is that what it was intended, its intended use?
I can't speak for it. I didn't check the old plat. The intended use back then, the entire zoning code has changed. So when we updated the entire zoning code in 2019 and 2020, the parcel was zoned AUH, as Al said.
For tax purposes.
And then, so that's agriculture urban holding, with the idea that they would zone into a normal non-holding district whenever development came forward. That district no longer exists in the village of Mount Pleasant. It had a lot of problems that I won't get into, but we tried to appropriately push the parcels into their closest corresponding new zoning district. This do it to it being residential at that time for that ag urban holding, as well as being above an acre in size. That's why it got slotted into the estate residential district. So that's the history of the parcel, for which I'm aware. I've been here 6.5 years at this point. So.
And Taylor Crossing, the office complex that's down the road, under today's code, what would that be zoned?
That's a good question. Let me
It's a
pull it up.
single-story office and business.
I think it's mostly B2.
So the bottom line is that under B2, for the use that most of us see as the use that would be used there, 35,000 square feet, taking into account all the setbacks, all the landscape requirements, et cetera, and the degree of difficulty of getting the access. There's 554 feet of access area along Taylor Avenue, Highway X. The county, having had professional experience in this level, Sam's correct. The chances of them getting any kind of permits to allow a grandiose entrance for some grandiose use are very slim to none. They'll be regulating that, and they're regulating those accesses very carefully today, as opposed to years back. So we have Taylor Crossing, which is, I think, in my mind, if there were gonna be a business use there, that's kind of what I would envision. Something very innocuous, a small business office, a dentist office, a finance office. And I don't think for that corner, because of what's happened in our community, I don't think that's a bad use. I think that when you look at highest and best use, which is what the Plan Commission is bound to look for, our zoning administrator and planner, Sam and Robin, that's what they're bound to determine. What's the highest and best use for a property? With 35,000 square feet of buildable area, if you were to look at it and say, we want residential there, the members, the residents of Campbell's Woods, and I certainly understand your concerns. If you were to say, well, we think residential's fine because it matches us, what's the quality of the residential you're actually going to get there? In my mind and in my professional world, the right use, in even a business use, next to a residential development, a high-end residential development, a beautiful residential development like yours, is better than the same use, but one being low quality. In my mind, it doesn't accomplish your goal. I think that the problem we have, first of all, another question is, have the wetlands been delineated recently? I guess that would be for the owner.
And not within the last 5 years.
Okay, so they're gonna have to start over in regards to the wetlands. And we don't know how that's gonna impact this. Wetlands and properties that have just sat unattended for years, sometimes those wetlands tend to grow. So there may be even less property here to develop than they think. But I do believe between them taking a piece of the corner off on KR with the road widening, with the restrictions of the high tension wires, you're not gonna see a residential user wanna come under there. And I think it is a problematic property in that regard. But when I look at 35,000 square feet, a county trunk highway on one side and currently a state trunk highway on the other, although that will go to the county eventually, KR will go back. I think I can support the commercial. I'm worried about the tattoo parlors. I see absolutely no interest from a gas station user. They're gonna go after traffic counts. They're gonna go at any high-end user that's really gonna be bringing, lights and traffic and tons of cars through, is not gonna put their business in that location. They're gonna put it on 31 where the high traffic counts are. And Bob, I think you know that from your commercial background. You have a lot of experience in that genre as well. I think the biggest hangup I have is that we can't manage the B2 better in terms of an applicant coming in and telling us what they want. But by the time they do the wetland delineations, by the time they do the engineering, by the time they adhere to our codes, I think that we're gonna have a reasonable user there, if one at all. And so in that regard, as much as I would rather see the corner look nice than look the way it does now, quite honestly. So for those reasons though, and highest and best use and looking at land planning as I do, I think that I can support the corner in a B2 use, knowing that Taylor Crossing, right down the street, which is a very quiet use, is in the B2 area. You mentioned the Mueller property is agricultural to the kitty corner to you, but he also has a sawmill there. So there is actually an agriculturally approved business going there. So knowing that the wetlands will have to be redelineated, that we will see this again, I can support the zoning as presented.
Trustee Washburn just said if one at all, as far as commercial use, based on how Trustee Hewitt mentioned that it's a very challenged property. Really, in as much as its current zoning is residential, look, I know all you guys. So you gotta know that there isn't a snowball's chance, and you know where, that somebody's gonna buy that and build a house there on that corner because of the challenging circumstances of it, the wetlands, the power lines, setback issues. It isn't going to be a house. So it goes before the Plan Commission. Plan Commission says, yeah, this looks like a reasonable application to take it to the next use, which is a limited commercial application. It's still going to be a quiet corner because all the action is out there on the main highway, the one that goes through Nancy's farm. So just looking at it from that direction and knowing that Trustee Hewitt and Trustee Botcher both sit on the Plan Commission, they recommended it. Maybe with reservations, maybe not. But I don't see a reason to not support this and give the developer a chance to market this property to somebody that might be willing to buy it, because nobody's going to build a house on it. Let's be real here.
Well, after listening to all sides, I have a couple of other concerns and comments. And since this is a challenging property, one of my concerns is, yes, once we rezone it B2, we don't have any control. Yes, it can be anything. Although I do hear that because of the location, a major gas station is not going to happen, but we really don't have any control on some other, Trustee Hewitt, he made a comment, and I've been kind of thinking about it, because if we approve it, then we don't have any control what goes on there. Except we know that the property probably will not be developed as a residential, and if it is developed commercial, it probably is going to upset the neighborhood. But at the same time, if we deny it, then I guess, Sam, correct me, if we deny that, then it can only apply for one more year, correct?
That is correct, if
Okay.
this zoning is
So what
denied.
I've been thinking is, why don't we table it? And I don't know legally if it's possible, or why don't we table it and ask the community, you come up with the best solution. You are opposed to the business, you are residential, it probably is not going to happen. Maybe the Campbell community want to open a clubhouse over there. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking it loud over here that if we table it, we may have some more time to have maybe a discussion and kind of come up with the best solution. As far as the high voltage tension lines are concerned, this happens to be my area because by background I'm electrical engineer, and I know that there have been concerns, but there isn't anything concrete or documented. I have seen the houses which are 100 feet from the high voltage, and people have been living happily ever after. So I'm kind of thinking that because of those reasons, I would hope that we amend the motion and kind of we table it and give the residents a chance. Maybe whatever the time frame is, you come up with a better solution. Otherwise, maybe the next time it comes, it will go through again.
I don't know. that
I'd
there-
like to say that I agree with Ram in that I think tabling it might be a better idea, and leave the option open and have a developer come to us and say what they want to put on the property. And if we find that it is amiable to the public and the neighborhood, then we go forward with it, but we table it until then.
Did you have something, Denise?
I want to ask Sam if, what would be the result, I mean, if we tabled it, then if somebody wants to buy the property, I mean, he could put it up for sale, an RE, and then somebody who wanted to buy it would have to get it rezoned to do something different. I guess I'm just wondering, the whole sequence is a little confusing to me.
I think from staff's perspective, we don't mind if you table it to another meeting, but I would be hesitant to table it. You only have 2 meetings left in the year, and you can't table it in perpetuity until a developer comes in. You have to table it for a specific reason. So if you're curious and want us to provide more of a detailed report, or I don't know, anything else that we can provide, we can come back in November and do that. I'll caution you on that approach as well, as the November 14th meeting is going to be a busy one. You have a full budget as well as a TID district to vote on as well. So it's going to be a big one. So, table it, but table it for a specific reason and let us prepare a report for it. You can't just set it aside until a developer comes in. If that's the case, then you should vote it up or down, in my opinion.
I'm sorry, and I agree with Sam. It's gone through Plan Commission. Staff has made its recommendation to approve it. It's here before us. We've had talk in favor of it, talk against it, neighborhood concerns. But you don't get business done by tabling everything and thinking about it forever. I would suggest that we vote this thing up or down.
Mr. President, as a follow-up to both of these conversations, certainly the property owner has been trying to market it as a residential piece. So one of the opinions I'm hearing is that he should be allowed to market it as a business piece, and that buyer would have to come in and get it zoned. And that's very definitely a potential process that they could go through. But I also it's like I'm hearing people say the same thing, they're kind of contradicting themselves. In other words, it sounds like there is not only the Plan Commission's agreement that the highest and best use for this piece is probably not gonna be residential, and yet everyone, then I hear a couple of people saying, well, we should go, we should table it and we should let the neighbors discuss it a little further. Let the neighbors talk among themselves. Certainly, again, if they want to buy the piece as part of Campbell's Woods as a whole, they can do that. Whatever it's zoned will work with them. They know that. But I don't think that's their plan. I don't think they have that desire or ability. So because the applicant is here before us tonight, he's been through the Plan Commission, he's been through a very detailed review. Whether we can answer the questions about what happened 20 years ago with Joe Campbell, trust me, there's a lot of questions out there about Joe Campbell. But I think that in view of this particular property, to lay it over does nothing but put off a decision. Sometimes they're hard decisions for us to make. But I'm going to stick with my position. I would support it with the vote. The motion on the floor is to approve it. And I would support that motion because I think it is the highest and best use. I think it's a very complicated project or property. And I think that any buyer looking at it, because of the restrictions on it, it's going to be a very low impact use. It is not going to be a high impact use regardless. So again, I go back to supporting the motion as it's presented.
Anna Marie.
I just think, first of all, Sam does a great job when he's evaluating, and he's saying that B2 is the appropriate place to be. And it went through Plan Commission. They reviewed it and came forward with a recommendation. And I think that's what we need to do, is then to answer that with an affirmative.
Do you have something? I'll give you
I
the
was
last
just
word.
going to say that I do have a lot of faith in Sam's recommendation and also in Nancy's comments, because she has a lot of experience in this and knows what is likely to be, marketable. I mean, as Sam said, it's probably going to be driven more by the market than it is by the zoning. So
You can't get to step 2 without undertaking step 1.
exactly.
So
I have a question, if we may. Is there one person that can represent that property, Campbell's Woods, or anything like that at all? After our discussion, everything you've heard, something's going to happen to that property. You know it's not going to be residential. We have the opportunity to change it to something else. Before, I recommend that we give one person to answer or talk about it, Mr. Evangelisti possibly. He's been a spokesperson before when this was Campbell Woods and other things out in that area. He's approaching Christmas, and he would be the person who probably would have the jovial talk or anything. Is there anybody that has any further comments about our discussion, the discussion over here? And I'm going to ask the president to make a decision on that.
John, I'm not going to hear from anybody. I'm not going to recognize anybody.
Pardon me?
I'm not going to recognize anybody else. So
Okay, that answers the question then.
The decision is in front of us.
Okay. I just was wondering if we had that, and that opportunity has gone.
So with that, I'm going to call the vote. Roll call, please.
Washburn.
Aye.
Hewitt.
Aye.
Doxy.
Nay.
Bhatia.
No.
Clausen.
Aye.
Anastasio.
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye. Motion passes 5-2. So let's move on to the public hearing on Ordinance 35-2022, which is zoning map amendment for 6915 Washington Avenue. Zoning map amendment ZMA 22-11, and it's regarding property tax parcel 151032214085000.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve.
Oh, wait,
Hold on, John.
wait.
We gotta do a public hearing first.
What did I do with my verbiage on that? No. So once again, I need to open the public hearing for that item, ordinance 35-2022 for zoning map amendment. And Mr. Schultz, or in this case, Mr. Palm.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. This is ordinance 35-2022, zoning map amendment for 6915 Washington Avenue. The owner is Dynacon Investments. The applicant is Pentex Restaurant Group. The comp plan says has this as mixed residential commercial, and the local planning area is 15. The zoning district existing is B2, community business, that we were just discussing, and proposed is to B3, general business. The applicant has requested to amend the zoning map for 6915 Washington Avenue from B2 to B3. The applicant wishes to develop a Taco John's quick serve restaurant. The applicant requested the B3 zoning to allow for multiple drive-through lanes. Our zoning code prohibits multiple drive-through lanes in the B2 district. The applicant did not apply for site plan review at this time, so if this rezone approves, we will be seeing a site plan and plan commission. The property currently contains an animal hospital. The applicant plans to raise the animal hospital pending future site plan review. Thereafter, they may plan to construct a 2,440 square foot single-story Taco John's. The application includes a preliminary proposed site layout. The plan shows two existing access drives from Prairie Drive to the site. Those access lanes will be closed, and 2 new access points replacing them. The plan provides pedestrian access to Washington Avenue and 29 parking spaces. The plan must meet stormwater management, landscaping, and screening requirements, especially along the south side of the site, to provide a buffer between the restaurant and adjacent residential uses. The Washington Avenue corridor in the development is mostly zoned B3, some B2. The proposed map amendment matches the property to the east and properties across Washington Avenue, of which Scooter's Coffee just opened today, by the way. The case is like the September map amendment that we saw and was tabled from this body that proposed the car wash, as both contained requests to amend B2 zones to B3 zones on the basis of the double drive-through. However, the car wash amendment also contained a conditional use, and the primary concern from that was the noise from the vacuum cleaners. And so that was recommended denial by the Plan Commission and then tabled by this body. The area near the car wash contained more residential units, whereas this area contains other service commercial units, uses, and food uses. Many of these uses serve Case High School throughout the day, and the village staff anticipate the students and staff of Case High School would frequent this restaurant. Tacos. Well, everybody likes tacos. So this is consistent with the master land use plan. So the village does not have an adopted plan for local plan area 15. And then it meets all of those performance requirements. The fiscal impact. The property currently has an appraised value of $355,000. The Taco Bell on Washington Avenue and Green Bay Road has an assessable value of $1.8 million, and the Taco Bell located next to Regency Mall has an assessable value of $988,000. Both locations are over 10 years old and have a much smaller dining room, so the village staff anticipate that this redevelopment would be assessed at $2 to $2.5 million. And then we do not maintain that particular road. That's the state and county's responsibility. Additionally, staff considerations. The village staff recommended the applicant consider a walk-up window and patio dining area when submitted for the site plan. While the municipal ordinance do not require one, Scooter's Coffee, which just opened today, across the street did install one at the staff request. And the village staff believed that both the window and outdoor eating area would serve nearby Case High School students well on nice days and would just be nice amenity. So the Plan Commission and village staff recommend approval of this ordinance, and I will be available for any questions. Thank you.
Robin, is the petitioner here?
Yes, the petitioner is here, if you would like to hear from them.
Yes, for the edification of the board and the public, could one of you come up and give us a little bit better idea what's going on? It's about tacos.
David Church, 6915 Washington Avenue, and I'm not technically the petitioner, but I'm the developer of the project, working with the tenant, and I'm here to support the request to rezone. It's a natural fit for an already established retail corridor. This is my second project with them, and I'm highly confident that they're going to be a good community partner and certainly adhere to the architectural requirements and landscaping requirements to build a really nice looking building that's going to serve the community well. So I'm excited about the project and the investment that the company's going to make into this site and really unlock a lot more value than is currently there. So yeah, the company representatives are here to get into more detail if you have questions about some of their operations and
Okay,
things.
we may or may not recognize them when that business gets in front of us. This is, okay, but thank you for now. Keeping in mind that this is the public hearing part, I don't have anybody signed up wishing to speak for or against it from the public. The owners and representatives we can certainly bring up and recognize during the next piece of business. But again, for the public, anybody willing to speak for or against? Not hearing from the public.
Somebody raising his hand.
Excuse me? Were you wishing to speak on this item? Yes. If you would come up to the podium, you may speak. And do fill out the public comment piece before you leave, okay? And turn that into the clerk.
Hi, my name's Gary Wolbach. I live on 1634 Weiss Lane. And we were just concerned that they would have a driveway staying where it is now and not coming off of 20, because it's right on Prairie right now. Is that driveway going to stay existent?
Yeah, yes, the access will remain on Prairie Drive because the State Highway 20 has a lot of traffic, and having, turns off that, not only is it state regulated whether access is allowed or not, they would probably deny a new access off 20.
So we can expect a lot of, you're right by a stop sign there. So you can expect traffic trying to go and get on the Highway 20 and trying to get into Taco John's? That doesn't seem right to me. I mean, you're...
Most likely it would be regulated as like either a right in, right out, or such as the other side of the street is. I think so. Am I in error on that one?
Yeah, but all the other ones on the other streets are coming off of 20. They're not off a side street, a residential street.
I think that, if I can interject, Mr.
Excuse me, I'd rather not. I'd rather take that part up, when the business is in front of us.
Oh.
Well, the other thing is that is sort of like where the accesses specifically are that is a consideration of the site plan submittal. This is just the rezone, which would determine whether or not a business use with a double drive-through is appropriate on this site. As for just where the access comes from, that's completely up to the state. So,
Yeah, because you're talking about all the kids walking there, and now you got people cutting in off of Highway 20 to get into this place, and no one ever looks when they're turning that corner if kids are coming across and that. If you ever been there during lunchtime, it's chaos down there, because the kids don't stop. They just keep walking across the street, even Highway 20, and they dare you to hit them. That's all I got to say.
Okay, appreciate your thoughts. Anybody else wishing to speak publicly on this item? If not, we'll close public comment, and so therefore also close the public hearing regarding this item. So from there, we can move to the discussion part of this for the board. Discussion possible action on Ordinance 35, excuse me, 2022, zoning map amendment for 6915 Washington Avenue, zoning map amendment CMA 2211, and it's regarding tax parcel 151032214085000. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve ordinance 35-2022, a zoning map amendment for 6915 Washington Avenue, zoning map amendment ZMA 22-11.
Second.
So I hear a motion and a second. I'll go back to Robin. There have been some concerns regarding traffic. And again, the board needs to, keep in mind that this is a zoning change. It's not a traffic plan. It's, all of that stuff gets sorted out as part of a developer's site plan, which we don't have either yet, right?
Yep.
Because we're in the zoning part of it.
Yeah, we have a preliminary site plan that indicates access off of Prairie Drive. I believe that, the developer would prefer access off of 20 because it's just easier, and would get more car traffic. However, the developers are planning on that they would not get that from the state because the existing public road Prairie Drive is there.
Exactly.
The staff consideration of adding a walk-up window would be to encourage non-vehicle users of the Taco John's to use it more instead of basically case high school students getting in their car and then driving into the drive-through there. So that is one sort of aspect that we were trying to mitigate how the traffic and the cars would go. Then again, it's not necessarily like a super high, it's not known as a super high stacking restaurant. It's not necessarily a Portillo's or, or the Chick-fil-A up in Glendale, which was 2 hours long. But we would be in the site plan process, we would be very interested to see stacking distances and averages and see how that would lay out across the site. So those are all considerations we have, but ultimately where the access is allowed is not up to us.
Did anybody have any further questions of the petitioners? Because I could recognize them. If not, won't. We'll just continue our discussion among ourselves and with Robin.
No, I have nothing. My comment mirrored Mr. Palm's comments regarding access, the current access being what it is and probably the only allowable one. So, thank you.
Sure. Any other thoughts?
I actually was told today about someone who's complaining about, and I think it's what Mr. Palm's talking about, with the kids walking from Case to Quick Trip, and they're leaving all kinds of trash and causing problems on that roadway. And in all honesty, it's already going on, and I don't think it's going to change anything because they're going to Quick Trip. Now they're just going to stop at Taco John's, or some of them will. So I don't think that changes anything or makes it worse if there's the Taco John's there with the drive off of not on 20 but on the side road. So, but yeah, the problem's already there with the kids, and that's got to be a behavioral change.
Well, sorry to interject, but having a property owner invested in their property, with paid employees to presumably clean up after the property would also help too. And if they don't, having a property owner invested in the property that we could cite for not doing that would also help too. So those are all concerns.
Right. Well, people like tacos, but they don't like mess, and so you're going to get told every step of the way going forward, have a cleanup plan. Any other thoughts? Okay, the motion in front of us is the zoning map amendment, ordinance 35-2022. Roll call, please.
Washburn.
Aye.
Hewitt.
Aye.
Doxey.
Aye.
Bhatia.
Aye.
Clausen.
Aye.
Anastasio.
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye, motion carries. So let's move on to public safety, discussion possible motion to amend Chapter 10 of the Municipal Code of Ordinances pertaining to animals, which is Ordinance 39-2022.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve Ordinance 39-2022, amending Chapter 10 of the Municipal Code of ordinances related to animals as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. Let's go back to Attorney Smith.
Okay, this was here 2 weeks ago, and we brought it back, and Trustee Bhatia stated on the record that time that there's no reason we can't improve it. What we had last week was better than what we had prior, and I think this improves on what we had last week. And the major change is to specifically take language from the state statute that we did incorporate with the version from last week, but actually, rather than just refer to the statute, we actually took the words from the statute and gave it some context on page 4 under sub B3 to make it very clear that the police have the power to now go and seize an animal if that animal has done damage to a person, even if the animal is not at large, and hold the animal in custody until a judicial determination can be made. So, you know, that's something that I know was important to residents, and we did incorporate that statute, but this just makes it even more clear for our police officers. It also, on page 5, under sub C, designates the police chief to be the one to notify or designate to notify an owner of a vicious animal if there's reasonable grounds to believe an animal is vicious. There's some cleanup throughout, just eliminating any references to dangerous animals. And that's about it.
What is the,
Chapter 10, Version 2.
on the agenda, it says municipal code related to dangerous animals. Is that still the title? As opposed to vicious?
Well,
Or does it?
on the agenda?
Pertaining to animals.
I guess you have a slightly different one than I do.
That might have been, you might have jumped through a different timeline.
Okay. Never mind.
It's just related to animals because that's the name, I think, of that chapter, is just animals.
Okay.
And it deals with, as you can see, if you look through this whole ordinance 2 weeks ago or today, there's a huge chunk of the ordinance we're not really dealing with when we're talking about like horses and animal napping, meaning not animals sleeping, but like stealing the animals and stuff like that. So it's just, you know, the portion we've been dealing with is really when there's an injury, a vicious animal, and then what happens then.
Okay, any other thoughts? Just
No, I thought, good job to clean it up a little bit and to come back quickly in doing that so that it's clear to everybody. And again, I think in our additional committee of the whole discussion regarding this tonight, one of the things that we've put a lot of focus on this incident that happened, and it was a very, it's very sad that it happened, and it's very important, and that is what has gotten us now to create a comprehensive ordinance that is not only tailored to dogs, but to all the animals that could possibly be in the community causing harm or destruction. And it's, so again, I think we want to make sure that the people in the community who have good dogs understand that we're not going to come and take their dog out of their yard, right, Chief? You know, I mean, we want to make sure they're comfortable, and we're going to,
Yes, last resort only, obviously.
thank you. So, thank you.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to what Trustee Ram said a few weeks back. We had an ordinance that certainly needed rewrite. What we passed a few weeks back was good, and I think he said at the time it can get better.
Mhm.
And I think that's what you're seeing now.
Yeah.
I'll give you the last word, Ram.
Well, again, I want to add, add to my comment, there is nothing in this world, there's no process, there's no document which is final. You learn from experience, or you learn from when you put it in use. What works, what doesn't work. What kind of frustrates me is that there are some people out there who don't want to walk the walk, talk the talk. They just want to oppose everything. And I thank you, Chris, for keeping on listening and see where there's room for improvement. Where there's room for improvement, this village board, this staff will work to make those improvements. And thank you.
Okay, so in the matter of ordinance 39-2022, roll call, please.
Washburn,
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Doxy,
Aye.
Pacchia,
Aye.
Clausen,
Aye.
Anastasio,
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye, motion carries.
Mr. President, excuse me, but I have to leave.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you.
Mr. Ram, you're excused. Any thoughts from Trustee Clausen on tourism?
Just real quickly, the Racine Jack-o'-lantern Festival ends this coming weekend, and we were supporting that. The only other things that have been on slate, we sponsored or promoted for the DRC. They had a couple of wine walks, and in November, they will have a beer and bacon walk, and of course, the holiday parade, and a ladies' night out. We support the DRC. There's no real funds or activities come through tourism.
Okay, one last motion.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I hear a motion, a second.